Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. Today we have with us writer director Eduardo Rodriguez. Eduardo, thank you for being on our show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's
Really
uh,
appreciate it.
it's our pleasure. I saw your newest movie that came out, The Darkness of the Road. You said it was released a couple of days ago. We'll get to that in a minute. And
All right.
we were just talking on how brilliant and unique of a script this is. Uh,
Oh,
I wanna
thank you.
I wanna ask you. It is so difficult nowadays to come up with something new in Hollywood, where everything has been done, and people are trying to find new ways to narrate stories. So, when you were writing this script, what was your biggest influence, and what inspired you to make it different from something people have seen before on their screens?
Inspiration. I'm a big fan of all. I grew up with all the '70s horror movies. Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Shining. I grew up with all those movies, so I'm sure there's a lot of inspiration and influences from those movies on all of my movies. When I actually wrote Darkness of the Road, it wasn't so much that I wanted to try something different. It is based on a short film that I also wrote and directed 20 years ago, back in 2001. I went to Florida State, FSU in Tallahassee,
Uh-huh.
and that was my thesis film back back in 2001. And it was the same premise. Mom wakes up in the middle of the night and her little girl is gone, and she freaks out and she starts searching for her. But that was only a 15-minute long short, and I wanted to explore more. I wanted to get to know her more, why she did what she did, how she faced the consequences of what she did. So I just wanted to explore more of that idea, and so based on that short film, I wrote the feature version.
Very nice. Now you have going back to the early 2000s. Uh, this is what's written. Verify if this is true or not. But back in 2002, the head
Uh,
of Dimensions Films at that time offered you a three-picture deal, which got you listed on Entertainment Weekly's 2002 It list. First of all, is that true? And if it is, what was that like?
it is true. A lot of partying, a lot of fun stuff. It was a little surreal. I never actually believed it that much because I was just coming out of film school. My plan was, again, I was back in Tallahassee. So my plan was finish film school, come to LA because I wanted to make movies and be a PA in some movies, write some scripts. I never imagined that I was going to get a three-picture deal out of anybody,
That is
not
so
even one
rare.
picture deal,
Yeah,
nothing. so so to me it was always like one of those stories that you read about but it doesn't happen to you, and that's how kind of like the way I always took it. It's like this is like some Hollywood fantasy thing, so I'm just going to continue with what I want to do, which is making movies, so I never
exactly.
really bought too much into it, and it was such a weird thing because I got the three picture deal, but then as I was finishing my first movie, I don't know if you remember, but back in 2002, the Weinsteins got booed out of
Yeah.
Miramax and
Hmm.
Dimension Films, and the whole thing fell apart. We
Yeah.
were doing post production on my first movie, which was called Curandero, back in Mexico City, and we heard the news. Oh, Miramax is gone.
Yeah.
The Weinsteins are gone. So there was no three picture deal anymore. There was not even a studio
Yeah.
to to
And
make any
that's
more movies.
that's typical of this industry. One day, it could be here, and then the next day it can be here. It changes. It's very fluid. I tell everybody nothing is guaranteed in the
Mm-mm.
entertainment industry. Absolutely nothing. Now, looking at your body of work, you can tell you are a big horror lover, a big horror fan. All your work consists in the horror genre. How far back does that go for for you? Was it always from childhood that you had this love for horror?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up more with horror novels. My first uh, horror book was Stephen King's Cujo,
Oh,
and that's scary. And there's nothing supernatural about that story, but that scared a lot of me. And I think that something hit me when you were like, "Where a dog can be that scary." You know,
hmm,
mom trapped in a car with a little girl, and just the dog outside that car can be that scary that I don't somehow something clicked in my head that it's like this is what I want to do. And like I said, then I was really I didn't watch that many horror movies when I was a kid because I was really scared. Like I remember I saw Jaws, and my mom was like, "Don't watch it, don't watch," and I was like, "I don't care, I'm gonna watch it." So I watched it anyway, and it was like a week that I couldn't sleep. Every night I will wake up with nightmares.
yeah.
So I avoided horror movies as much as I could when I was a kid.
Now you hail from Venezuela. How much of an influence, coming from Venezuela, plays into your writing and directing?
Probably quite a bit. I mean, I spent 20 20 something years of my life in Venezuela. So I'm sure growing up there and completely different culture, it made a big impact on how I see the world and how I approach movies for sure. But I grew up with American movies, so and that's always been the love of my life. So I'm sure that there's a balance there.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. So you had this love of horror. You come to the United States. You said after 20 years, you go to school in Florida, and you knew that you wanted to be in films, correct? You wanted to make films. You had no doubt about that whatsoever, correct?
yes, sir.
So, what was the journey like? You were talking about your thesis from actually finishing school, and then you got this deal with Miramax, and you just said Miramax a year later fell apart. Um, do you think it was that short that you made as your thesis, which became the feature film, The Darkness of the Road? Would you say that has been the biggest pivot point in your career so far?
By far, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that short film exploded for whatever reason. I don't think it's that good, but that short film went everywhere. It got nominated to Cannes. It won like 20 festivals. It was crazy. It was a crazy adventure with daughter. That's the name of the title of the short film. So definitely that's how my career started. Thanks to that short film.
In the feature, you do a brilliant job of keeping the audience guessing what is real, what is not real. I know when I was watching it, uh, several times throughout the film, I'm like, okay, she's dead, and she's a ghost, and she doesn't know it, you know. And then I would go another way, and then it would bring me back. You kept us guessing, and for a person like me who's been watching horror films his entire life, it's not very easy to do. I can usually kind of figure it out, but you really kept us guessing. Um, did you have that all preset? It's different when you're sitting and you're writing the script. When you finally got on set and you got behind the camera, did you find that you had to make a lot of adjustments to bring what you had written down to life on camera?
Yeah, for sure. But I think not only with Darkness of the Road, every movie, in my experience, is always a struggle between what you have on the pages and what you can in the translation to images. Budget wise, time wise, special effects wise, there's always something. What you have in your head is never what you can put on the screen,
No.
and there's that struggle and that balance. And I think making movies is achieving that balance between what your imagination is telling you to do and what the reality it is because you're running out of time and because you don't have enough money to do the visual effects that you want or whatever limitations you have. and I think that's part of the excitement of making movies, is figuring it out as you go. How can I make this the dream that I had?
Yeah.
You know.
Now, we know it was a short. Did you know that at some point in your career you wanted to make this into a full feature film?
No,
Okay.
no. It was more of it just after I make this short film, probably because it did so well, it was with me all the time. I didn't write the feature until 10 years later. Um, so it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make this short because I want to do the feature version of it. I just wanted to make the short based on that idea. And then it kind of like stuck with me throughout the years. And at some point I was like, well, I got to put this on paper, otherwise it's going to drive me crazy. So I started writing the feature version.
So you finished the writing part of the feature sometime around 2011, 2012. Did you try pitching it right away to get
Yeah.
financing? It just took a really long time to find somebody to back it.
10 years in the making, yes, sir. Uh, Actually, I had a couple of producers, really good friends of mine, Chris and Luis, were the original producers attached to Darkness of the Road, back, as you said, in 2010, 2011. And we went everywhere. We pitched it everywhere. We tried to get the money for it. And they worked their asses off, but it never came together for whatever reason. Um, Whatever problems we had, it never came together. We actually ended up making another movie together called "You're Not Alone,"
Yeah.
because we worked together so well trying to put Darkness together that after that was over, we were like, we got to make a movie together, and we ended up making another movie.
That you stated that you were surprised by how popular the short was. Did you feel the same way about the feature? Did that surprise you? Because it's getting rave reviews all around. People love the feature film. When you
Oh,
look
thank you.
when you look at the finished product, the film, uh, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that you don't know why the short became so popular and not why so many people loved it. Do you feel the same way about the movie, the full movie?
The movie hasn't been out there for that long at least for me to know what the reaction is going to be. But just to give you an example, the first test screening that we had of the movie, it was probably 12, 15 people on that theater. Every single one of them hated it, like hated it with passion. Like, why do you make this movie? Uh, um,
Wow.
there was a guy who was like, "Oh, you like torturing your audience," and I'm like, "No, man, I'm just doing this for entertaining. Now, I don't want to torture nobody." There was a guy who was like, "They take all the horror out of it and just make it a drama." Nobody on that audience liked
Wow,
the
that really
movie.
surprises me.
And that put things in perspective, you know. Of course, that was just a test audience, and to the producers' credits, they didn't freak out because I remember the editor was sitting there with me, and we were looking at each other. It's like, oh, dude, we're in trouble. You know, they're gonna dismantle the movie if they follow whatever this audience is saying. But to the producers' credits, they believed in the movie, they believed in the story, and they stuck with it. And we made some changes. We weren't completely deaf to
Okay.
what they were saying, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this movie sucks. We gotta reshoot it or redo it or anything, you know. So
Okay. Okay.
so
Now, at the end of the day, 100% of the people are not going to love a movie. 100% of the people are not going to hate a movie. All right.
mhm.
At the
Yep.
end of the day, you as a filmmaker have to like and be proud of what you did. When it comes to the full feature of The Darkness of the Road, now that it's done, you've seen it, are you happy with what you put out there?
Yeah, some parts of it I'm happy. Some parts of it I wish, like, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more money. I'm my worst critic, probably. That's why I tell you, like, I'm not sure why people love the short so much, because I watch it. I'm like, and you start seeing all the mistakes you made and all the stuff that you wish you would have done otherwise. So I'm probably the worst person to ask if my movie is good or not, because
You're
you never watch
self-critical.
it as a full story. You just watch it as these pieces that you were putting together and shooting, and all the problems and all the issues that you had to go through when you were making it come to your mind like right away.
When it came to the writing part, was it always your intention? And I love this about films, where the filmmakers don't hand us the whole story on a platter and you walk us through every step. You leave stuff up open to interpretation. And there's a lot of that in The Darkness of the Road. Was that always your intention to leave parts of the movie up to the audience and their interpretation of what's going on in the story?
Yeah, I love those kind of movies. The ones that don't try to force you to feel one way or to think on a straight path. And I try to, as much as I can, especially when I'm writing my own stories, to not give everything to the audience, because I think to me that's kind of boring. Like, don't tell me how I should feel. Don't tell me how was exactly what's going on here. Let me come to my own conclusions, and I think that's a game that you play with the audience, and sometimes it goes in ways that you never even expected and are better than any of the ideas that you could have ever had.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's a good thing, you know.
Now, the film centers around two main characters, and that's Siri and Iris, okay?
Hmm.
Now, for me, with Siri, we sort of know that something is definitely not right with her, something, we don't know what, but something's not right. For me, the more fascinating character is Iris, okay? Because she pops out of nowhere, and me as the audience, I'm like, well, where did this woman come from? They're in the middle of nowhere, and they meet up at this convenience store, and she hitches a ride with Siri, and then all this weird, crazy stuff starts to happen. When it came to when it came to writing the feature film, which of those two characters uh, gave you the biggest, I don't want to say problems, but was more difficult to formulate? Was it Siri or the character of Iris?
I think it was, to me, when I was writing, it was a little bit of both. The reason why the practical reason why Iris exists is because I couldn't figure out how am I going to make a movie with just one person. Who is she going to talk to? I can give her like a bowling ball, like Tom Hanks.
And Castaway, yeah.
It'll look weird. Yeah. Uh, so the short film, there's no Iris in the short film, and so the practical reason was I need to give her a companion so she can express her ideas, her concerns, all this stuff that's going on through her mind. And then as I started writing it, new ideas. I don't want to spoil anything, but new ideas came to my mind of how I can integrate these two characters and make them work in a different way. So I think it was a balance of sometimes Siri was, especially because Siri's journey is such a big drama, is a tragedy, what she goes through. So she has so much weight throughout the story and what's happening to her. But Iris also was tricky business because I had to find ways to make her interact with Siri and make it flow and feel natural.
Now, the two actresses, Najara and Leah, they were fabulous. Did it take you a while to find the right women to play Siri and Iris? Did you go through a prolonged casting period, or did you get really lucky with those two?
We got really lucky with both. We did auditions on both sides, but it wasn't a long. I think our longest audition was for the little girl
Oh,
because that was the hardest part to cast with Gwyneth, and we lucked out with her too because she was amazing, and And I always tell this story. Her parents were even more amazing because sometimes, you probably know this, when you work with kids, the parents can become their own horror movie, their own horror story, become a nightmare.
Yeah, I've got three of my own, so yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so on set that can be trouble. And her parents were super cool. They understood what we wanted to do. They understood it was going to be all nice shoot, and they were super cooperative, and that made my life and everybody else's life easier on set. But going back to Najara and Leah, Najara had worked before with one of the producers, so he suggested her, but we auditioned her just the same, and she blew our minds during the audition. Like, one of the scenes that she read for was when she's in the car, and the little girl is there with Iris, and her performance was flawless. At that point, when I saw that, I was like, we don't have to look any further. This is our series. And it was a hard scene to pull off on an audition where you're just in an office with nothing to react to, just sitting in a chair and a bunch of people watching you, you know. And
they nailed it, both of them. They were great. They were fantastic.
Absolutely.
I mean, that was awesome picks for both of those two characters. They are what makes, they are a big part of what makes the film works. Would you say at the core of the story, it's just a fundamental, the relationship between mother and child? Would you say that is what the message you are trying to convey at the core of this film?
Yeah, absolutely. And the sacrifices that you make as a parent, and all the decisions, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, that you make for your kids, you know, because that's number one at the top of your list, your children. And
absolutely,
that was
when that baby comes into the world, I know I can speak for myself as a parent. You stop living for yourself and you start living for your child. So
absolutely,
so parents could definitely relate with what's going on with Siri and her child in the film. Now, when it comes to you personally, writing and directing, if you had to pick, which of the two would you say is where your true passion lies? Is it with writing? Is it with directing? Or is it an equal both?
No, directing for sure. I don't even call myself a writer. I don't have the discipline to sit every day, which a writer has to do. You know, sit every day in front of a computer and write 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, whatever. I don't have that discipline, and it is a struggle actually for me to write, to sit there and put all those words and slowly build the script and the story and see how the characters. So I only write when I can't contain the story within myself any longer. Then I'm like, I know I gotta write this, otherwise, like I told you before, I'm gonna go nuts. Otherwise, I just pass. It's like, okay, this is a cool idea. I'll just write down the idea, but don't get into the whole script thing. So I don't think I'm a writer. I'm definitely a director.
A director. So in all the film that you've directed so far, which project of yours are you most proud of?
None of them, as I tell you.
You are really critical.
But I can tell you which one was the most fun.
Okay.
And that wasn't even a full film. I only did 5 scenes. It was all the horror set pieces for a movie called The Messengers, which was produced by Sam Raimi. And it was directed by a couple of directors, the Pang brothers. And I don't know exactly the details, but the studio didn't get along with them, and they didn't get along with the studio. So they fired them, and they were looking for a director to the reshoots and all the horror pieces because they weren't working in the movie. And Sam Raimi saw my short film, and he liked it again. I don't know why, but he really liked it, and he hired me on the spot. That's the easiest job I've ever gotten. The only question he asked me was like, "Do you storyboard?" And I was like, "Yeah, sometimes I do storyboards, like for daughter for the short films. We storyboard a couple of scenes." And he looked at me for like a second, and he was like, "Okay, cool. So you start tomorrow, and this is what we want you to do." And that was it. Like I got the job just by saying that I like to storyboard. Maybe if I would have said no, I hate storyboarding, I would have never made.
What was it like? I mean, Sam Raimi, that's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big name in not just horror, but movies in general. Sam Raimi's not exclusive to horror, although some of his best films are in the horror genre. What was your experience with Sam Raimi?
Oh, amazing! That's what I was telling you. That's the most fun I ever had. And I said, and I was a new kid on the block because they already shot the movie, so everybody knew each other. The DP, it wasn't my DP. It was a whole crew that they already had in place. And I was gonna go there and be like, "Hey guys, I'm here. I don't know. They put me here, and I'm supposed to tell you what to do." So I was super scared, but everybody, we shot in Canada and in Saskatchewan, and everybody was super cool, super welcome. Sam Raimi, what he really wanted to make that movie the best movie he could make, and even though he was a producer, um, and it was a blast from beginning to end. Working on that project to be top of the list. It
Uh,
was fun from beginning to end.
and I've heard a lot of stories about Sam Raimi, and they're all the same. He is such a laid back, great guy to work with,
He
and
is.
yeah, everybody backs that message up. Where did you shoot The Darkness of the Road? What was the location?
That was here in Lancaster, in California.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Because, it's the perfect location. I mean, for me personally, growing up in a city, one of my worst fears is my car breaking down in the middle of a desert. A single lane highway, nobody around for miles, and the location adds to the eerie and scary factor of the film. And then you have the great visual effects with the lightning in the sky overhead. The cinematography in this film is really amazing. Is
Thank you.
that's all you, or did you bring in a special DP to help you out? How did you guys work together with the cinematography?
Yeah, that's John DeFazio, my DP. I've worked with John for like the last 15 years or so. So we know. I call John my friend more than my DP, and he's amazing. He's a mad genius. He never wants to do the same thing twice. He's always looking for new ways to tell the story with the camera. I remember that we have a shot on the movie where the camera is sideways. I don't know if you remember, but you
Yeah.
see the top of the car on the right side of the screen, and that was all John. And I remember one of the producers came to us and he's like, "Why are you guys putting the camera on? Like, you're gonna put it the right way, right?" And we're like, "No, this is the way. This is the way we wanted it. This is the way
It
we planned it
worked.
for, and it works." Yeah. So I trust John 1,000%. And we actually, our only conversation that I can remember was the three colors on the movie. We from the beginning we were convinced that we wanted to only use blue, red, and yellow. Again, trying to find that unique
Hmm.
look for the movie, and that was it. After that we did shot list. We storyboarded a couple of scenes because he needed special effects for the creatures and all that. But after that, I knew that John was gonna hit it out of the park. So I trust him completely.
Since you brought up the creature, we're not going to give away any spoilers, but is that one of the elements that was very important to you to leave up to viewer interpretation?
Yeah, absolutely. I left it as open as possible because I didn't want to tell them what I think the creature is. Everybody can have their own interpretation of what it is.
Now, when the film starts, it starts, and then Siri ends up in this convenience store. She explains that she's driving to California for a fresh start and whatnot. And then we have that eerie, in the beginning scene in that convenience store with the two men in that store. Also, their roles are a little bit open to interpretation as well. Was that also your intent with them?
Yeah. I guess this is spoiler alert. I'm just going to tell you a quick fun story,
Okay.
but it's going to spoil a little bit. Johnny Whitworth, the guy who plays the clerk on this is how much open to interpretation it was, because I never thought of it this way. But he he came to me after reading the script, and he really liked it, and he wanted to be in the movie. He comes to me and he's like, I know who the clerk is. I'm like, oh yeah, who is he? He's Jesus Christ, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. if you if you wanted him to be Jesus Christ, by all means, you know. So it was, again, it was total. I wrote it as just these two guys who help you go from one place to another, but I never thought or tried to make them
Specific characters.
a specific character.
Very well done. Now, you said the movie released the 14th, which is what, like 2 days ago?
2 days ago, yeah.
And it's available on video on demand, correct?
Correct.
Is it wide like Amazon, Vudu, for people to rent or buy? So people
I've
can
seen
know
it
where to
on
find
Vudu, I've seen it on DirecTV, and I saw it on Google
Play.
Movie Play.
Yeah, Google Play. So, guys, the movie's called The Darkness of the Road. It's written and directed by Eduardo here. It's a great movie. Um, it's not like a blood, guts, and gore type of horror movie. It's a movie that's going to keep you on the edge of your seats. It's going to keep you guessing. And as Eduardo said, it's going to really make you question a lot of things that you see throughout the film. Eduardo, you did a brilliant job with this film.
Thank you.
I don't know what the hell was wrong with that screening crowd of 13, 14 people. But whatever changes, little changes you said you made afterwards, it worked. It's a great film.
Thank you.
I have no doubt it's going to succeed. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your thoughts on what went into making this film. Are there any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, man. It's been fun, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and have a wonderful New Year, man. We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. You too as well. Thank you to our audience for tuning in tonight. Thank you to Eduardo. On behalf of Eduardo Rodriguez and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Good night, everybody.
Bye.